Hello, and welcome to Draft Day. My name is John Fleming. I am one of the hosts of Draft Day. I am joined by Jason Bradshaw, who notes say here is one of the other hosts of Draft Day. Jason, how are you?
I'm doing great, John. I'm just so happy to be on here recording a different type of episode with you. With
Yeah, so
like
the last
little
ep-
to no prep time, it should be fantastic.
yeah, so the last episode we recorded um, was 47 or 46 draft picks long. This one is technically zero draft picks long, but I'll explain that a little bit. So, this is actually a concept that I had mentioned a little while ago, and we kind of were like, "Oh, that could be interesting." And we decided we were going to record this episode like I don't know a few hours ago. So, we
Yeah.
did not want to put a lot of like because people might think that we're not putting. People might not know how much effort we put into these, but like it does require some research to do like a sports draft. We don't just like know the numbers off the top of our head. I don't want to say
Yeah.
that it's like I'm not saying that we're suffering for our art, but I think people really do owe us a debt of gratitude. But that's neither here nor there. That's not what
Yeah, I
today's
mean
video.
it's if you want to make up that debt of gratitude, leave 5-star reviews on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this. Helps out the show greatly.
That's a good idea. I think everyone should do that. So the premise of this episode is we're going to actually give something back to the fans, even though, like we said, we're still expecting things from them. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a basically like a choose your own adventure for listeners out there. Jason and I have each prepared four different concepts for a draft we could do, and the purpose was like kind of go a little bit off the wall with it. Like, for instance, like I don't have like the 1997 NBA draft listed on here or something. It's
Yeah.
kind of going to be a little bit eclectic. We've had a few of those here and there, kind of higher concept episodes, but some of the ones on my list would definitely be among the crazier ones that we've ever done. I don't know what your list looks like, but I'm
Yeah.
hopeful.
I don't think that anything's too crazy. I will say I do have one conventional one on here, and
Okay.
it's admittedly it's my least crazy, but it's I would say a little more outside of our normal comfort zone of one.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that some of these are probably closer to like the movie draft, for instance, where like we have like these kind of rules, we have some sort of different things going on, but it's not necessarily like it's not going to be impossible to follow. And like all of these things like are still functionally drafts. We're not going totally haywire. But what we're going to do is Jason and I are going to take turns explaining our four choices, and then at the end of the episode, I will choose my two favorite of Jason's picks. Jason will pick his two favorites of my picks. We are going to, I guess we'll probably do this tomorrow, so probably on Wednesday, August 7th. We'll post the poll on the Twitter account, which it's DraftyPod, right? You're the one that
Yep.
runs it.
At Draft
Okay.
Day Pod. Yep.
Yeah, so we'll post on Draft Day Pod. We'll leave it up for a few days. Exact number of days TBD, but if you're listening to this shortly after it comes out, shouldn't be a problem. And we're just going to leave it up to the listeners of which draft that they want to listen to out of our choices. And we will honor the results of the poll. And, honestly, I'm kind of just curious what people are thinking because, it's possible that, you know, people's tastes are more conventional. It's possible people want something absolutely psychotic. I don't know, but I guess we're gonna find out.
Yeah. And you know, listeners, feel free to shoot us a suggestion on aforementioned either at Draft Day Pod, at John JF125 for John, at Draft Day Dash Shaw for me. Like this is nowhere near close to being like as planned out as we necessarily had it at the beginning where we were like, hey, we have like 4 drafts in the can. Now we're just kind of like, what do you feel like doing this week?
Yeah.
So, you may come in with something that's a way better idea, and we're pretty much down to do anything. Like, I don't, it probably not going to do, like a draft of like our favorite porn stars or something. Just throwing that one out there. Probably not going to take that suggestion. So sorry to cross that
Um,
one off your list, John.
yeah. All due respect to trying to remember the name of John C. Riley in Boogie Nights. That guy's my favorite porn star. That guy's name. Um,
I'm more of a roller girl guy, so I get it.
well, I remember her name. That one's pretty easy.
Well, Dirk Diggler's easy to remember.
Reed Rothschild. That's his name. His name is Reed Rothschild.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. Even though he doesn't appear to actually act in any pornos in the entire course of that movie, but we're not here to discuss the characters in Boogie Nights, unless that's what one of our drafts is about. I don't personally have anything specifically pertaining to Boogie Nights in my maybe you do. I don't know, but
Yeah. Maybe PTA movies makes it on there. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, that would be probably more sensible. But
Yeah.
so like I said, we're not actually drafting anything, so we didn't really determine who was going to go first. Would you like to submit an idea first, or would you like me to submit an idea first? Doesn't really matter to me.
John, I'll let you submit the first idea.
Okay. So my first idea is slightly conventional. It's the sort of thing that we would do, but it has a little bit of a twist to it. And my idea is to do a draft of our favorite American cities. Again, sounds somewhat conventional. I
Yeah.
believe that we should have a rule, however, in this draft that each of us has to choose, and we can figure out the exact parameters, but like I'm thinking like half of our choices should be cities that we've never actually been to. Because I have a strong belief that there's like a sort of a subsection of Twitter that I think of as travel Twitter that I think is just like straight up lying about all the places they've been to. Like if you run into a person that's like I've been to like all of these like 50 major American cities, all of these huge international locations, like what is your job that you would possibly like have the time or have like I think that there are like American like presidents that haven't been to as many countries as like random people claim to.
Yeah, I think, unless, you're a travel influencer or something. I mean, to be fair, as somebody who used to have a very travel heavy job, I've been to a lot of cities, but a lot of the cities I went to weren't like big major ones. I was in like
Yeah,
weird podunk towns. Now I'd go to some fun ones. I'd be in the Denver area. I'd be in the
sure.
Phoenix area. I mean,
Yeah,
heck, I
and
stayed. I stayed right next to State Farm or Stadium in Arizona, whatever it's called now. It was
I think it's State Farm. That
It
sounds
was the
right.
University of Phoenix when I was there, in Gila
Yeah.
River Arena, which was the old home of the Coyotes. So like places like that are cool, but for every one of those, I also have just like little podunk towns in Kansas and Arkansas that you've probably never heard of if you don't live in the Midwest. So that
But
could be a fun one.
a lot of them are also probably repeats. Like you're going to the same places like every year or every couple years. So an
Yeah.
example that I've brought up, I don't think I brought this up to you, but I brought it up to our friend Tyler. Not the dog, the one that's been on the podcast.
Oh,
One
okay.
that's
Okay.
legally been on the podcast and doesn't just bark during it.
Okay.
So Spencer Hall, who's a college football writer that I really like, but there are two things that are like kind of core to his identity, which is that he's talked about how he grew up, pretty poor, and he talks about, has this very like southeastern sensibility, and that's goes into his like love of college football. But he's always talking about like every like random city in the middle of like Asia or Africa, and it's like you write about college football for a living. Why would you possibly have gone to these places? And my theory is that he's just lying. Unprovable. Don't really have any desire to prove it, to be honest. But that was the inspiration behind my pick. So
I mean, traveling is a big deal. Some people I know, people who, you know, every year they are able to do like international travel every year. I mean, to be fair, like we used to do some decent trips. You know, you, myself, some other friends, we used to do sports trips.
Sure.
You know, since I've had children, that's kind of slowed down, and pandemic obviously slowed some of that down. And you
Yeah.
know,
So,
I,
so
I
I've
get it, but you know,
and to
it's
be clear,
expensive, but people make it a priority.
I'm not anti traveling. I just think that people are very a little too loud about it. Is my stance.
Fair, I think. Yeah, I mean, like the only person I know who can probably say they've been to a ton of places and they can is a friend of mine who's from where I live, but him and his wife are travel photographers. So
Yeah.
literally, like they go and people hire them and pay them exorbitant amounts of money to go to these like ridiculously cool locations to take like wedding and engagement photos. So
Not bad. Not bad.
yeah, it's a cool gig if you can get it, I guess. I think, and now they're based in Hawaii is where they decided to move to. So
Sure. Yeah.
yeah,
Get enough spam.
I mean, you know, nothing wrong with
All
that.
right. I want to hear what your you said it was.
It's
You
a
said you had a
basic,
most conventional idea. Yeah.
yeah, it's extremely conventional, but it's just unconventional from the maybe the time period. You know, we've stuck fairly modernish with a lot of our drafts. I'd say what have we done a draft that was before either of our lifetimes?
We did the 1984 NBA draft. Is the earliest
NBA
one we did.
'84. So yeah,
Yeah, we
but
did
what I
88 NHL as well,
okay,
which is
yeah,
barely
which
before my lifetime, but still
yeah,
is.
yeah. So, but this one, I picked the 1968 NFL draft. It's an interesting one. It has 8 Hall of Famers selected in it.
Is that the OJ draft? No, he
Um,
was 69
no,
draft, I think.
yeah, this was the one Ron Yeri went.
Okay.
I believe it has like Kenny Stabler's in it, some
Okay.
other guys like that. Like just a cool, loaded older draft, just to be
Okay.
something a little different. Nothing. It was and to be honest, I wanted to have kind of a lame one at my least desirable one, but I wanted it to be like a cool draft. Like, as much as it may have been fun, I don't know if people thought of like when we drafted the terrible NHL draft. Like, I don't want to do an old draft with terrible guys. Like, if we're gonna do an old draft, I'd like to be able to know most of the guys that are being drafted. So
Yeah, and for people who aren't super equipped with like sports draft history, there's kind of a limit on how far back you can go with sports drafts because they didn't really exist until like the NFL draft started. I guess that one started a little bit earlier. It started in like the 30s.
yeah,
The NHL the NHL draft was a territorial draft until 1970, I think. MLB draft started in 64, 65. Like there's not like an 1800s draft. Like Babe Ruth did not get drafted. Like he just got signed by somebody and then
right.
okay. That's not a bad one. I think that it would be a good bit if we just acted like we like were big fans of these players like during their careers too. Because
Yeah,
like
I mean,
half the time because like half the time with sports guys, like even if it's a guy that I've heard of, like I don't necessarily have like a distinct memory of some person.
yeah, I mean, to be fair, if we did, I would absolutely like talk about these guys with my dad because, like, which to be fair, my dad, like some of these guys, I've had cards of. I used to be real into buying and selling trading cards, and I had some old Topps football cards of a lot of these guys. So I'd ask my dad about it. Now, to be fair, my dad most of the time was just like, "Oh yeah, he's good in the Hall of Fame, I think."
Yeah,
And
that's
it would say the team they played for. It's like, I mean, but it's reassurance that, like, you know, to me, it's like, okay, you could be in the Hall of Fame, but you know, do people remember an offensive tackle from the late '60s and '70s? I mean, you wouldn't believe base cards I had of a Miami Dolphins guard, Larry Little. Holy cow! I couldn't keep those things, and I had like 9 of them, and I sold them all.
yeah, like I've heard that name before, but I definitely would not be thinking, "Oh, I
Yeah,
gotta get that." Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I
Okay.
think it's one that, like, you know, people in that generation, like those guys, you know, I guess they really are remembered, and I'm just not a student of the game, enough back that far. So it could be a fun one to go in and look at,
Yeah.
though.
Well, there are, especially in football, there are just like certain positions. Like, I'm gonna guess that if you went through like the top quarterback drafted in every draft from like the 60s or 70s, we'll have heard of most, if not all of them.
Oh,
But the number of like offensive linemen we're gonna know, like, there's some offensive linemen I know, but like, it's not most.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad to have a reasonable, like, an actual draft in there,
Yeah,
just because we might want to. Oh my God, Victor Scott just hit a home run. Crazy
the
things are happening.
Victor Scott the second.
Yeah, crazy things are happening on this
Wow.
as we
I
record
I
this.
watched that
Yeah.
guy play in Springfield, I think, for 2 years and don't know that I ever saw him hit a home run.
I don't think I've ever seen him hit a ball out of the infield before, but all right. That's I felt like that needed to be broken in the middle of this. In case anybody's wondering why we're not like freaking out on Twitter right now, because we were
Yeah.
recording this episode. All right.
I mean, good things happen when we record.
Except for when Willie Mays died.
Well, yeah. I mean, Billy Bean died today too, but at least not while we were recording. So
I should clarify that it's not the GM Billy Bean. I feel like that's just like a thing
yeah,
that people are inevitably going to mess up.
yeah,
Like, I saw the like MLB post about it. It's like people like posting clips of Moneyball. It's like, well, no, that guy's still alive. Like,
yeah, yeah. This was a guy who
Bean,
worked. He was worked for
yeah,
the.
Bean. He worked for MLB, and so I don't remember his exact job
It
title,
was like
but
yeah, it was like a diversity something or other. Just
yeah.
I saw the email that came through from MLB. But
So let's go to my number 2 pick. So this would be one where I would suggest, hey, Tommy Pham hit a home run too. Everything's coming up a Millhouse here.
so
Anyway, though,
Cardinals players that were not on the roster 10 days ago doing work.
yeah. Anyway, we don't have to talk about that one that much. But this one would probably work best if we brought a guest, and I think this would be a good one to bring Tyler back for, but we'd have to obviously check with him.
Mhm.
Um, this is I'm simply calling it the karaoke draft. It is a draft in which we pose a hypothetical where we're at a bar. It's karaoke night. It's just whoever's drafting doing the karaoke, and we're just going one after another, picking what songs we're going up there and singing, and trying to bring down the house better than anybody else. I think what makes this interesting is because I think that there is, unlike most of the drafts we do, some like building upon. There's some like organization to it because like if somebody decides they're going to sing some like super fast song, like maybe it's a little too jarring to go with like a slow ballad. And
Mhm.
maybe if somebody goes up there and sings an ABBA song, for instance, like, do you pick another ABBA song? Are people ABBA'd out? Kind of hard to get the vibe of.
Yeah, and a big, you got to start off with ones that maybe aren't going to be that could be impressive, but people aren't going to sing along to because they haven't had enough to drink yet.
Yeah.
Like you got to build into the night to where like, you know,
Yeah,
I
I
don't want
think
to say anything because you could have the songs that they're karaoke songs that always go towards the end of the night and people just belt out and sing along with
yeah.
whoever picks it.
Yeah, like if you're going to sing Don't Stop Believin' at karaoke, which is not a thing I condone, but if you're going to sing Don't Stop Believin' at karaoke, don't do it at like 8 or 9 o'clock. You do it at like quarter till midnight at the earliest when everyone's like hammered and just like is really emotionally tied to this stupid song about taking the midnight train going anywhere.
I mean, it's probably the only time I would not sit with my arms folded and
Yeah.
looking angry.
Well, there are certain songs that like are not good. Like, I think we actually mentioned this on our music episode with Tyler, but we went to a karaoke bar one time when somebody was singing Lips of an Angel by Hinder. Lips of an Angel is a god awful song. It's terrible. It is not a song I would ever voluntarily listen to. But people have been drinking. It's a song that is like way over the top. And yeah, I was singing along. Absolutely. Like, what
No,
am I
yeah,
gonna do? Just like sit there and be grouchy and be like, it'd be better if you were playing a Pavement song. Like, it's not what this
yeah,
is.
yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely good. If we're setting the lineup too, because like that's the worst part about karaoke is like you put in a song, but you don't know who's going to go before you.
Yeah.
Like you were there for the worst instance that I think I ever had, where it was the woman in front of me just absolutely cranked out. It was a heart song,
Was it
and she
Magic
just
Man?
it might have been. I was thinking it was either Magic Man or because it wasn't like Barracuda or anything like that, but like she freaking killed it.
And like we knew you were because I think it was Magic Man because I think it was a song that had a guitar solo in it.
It
So like
did, yeah.
not only was she like as good or better than Ann Wilson doing it, but like you knew you were coming up soon anyway, so you had to just like sit there and kind of stew in the fact of like
Yeah,
I have to
and
go
then
up to an
if
actual good person.
if I remember correctly, I think the song that I went up and sang was "Saturday Night" by the Bay City Rollers.
I don't remember, but that checks out.
I mean, it's very in my wheelhouse in terms of
Sure. Yeah.
like bands to sing songs of, but it was just like like you go up and you just have like this rock ballad that goes on for like 8 minutes, and then they're like, this guy's gonna sing a random song. It was terrible. So like that plays in. Like if you have to build. If I know who's coming before me, I can build the strategy around to make the best night, kind of a thing. I
Yeah.
like that idea though. That's fun.
Okay. All right. What is your second idea?
So my second idea, this is one I think it is definitely one we could loop in a third person, and I think this could be any third person that's a fan of sports in general. But for my number two one, we could draft um, our top sporting events that we would like to attend. I think
So is this top sporting events like you choose like the Masters and you go to the next year's Masters, or are you choosing like things that have happened already?
this would just be events that you would like to attend at some point that you have not.
Okay.
Um, I mean, I guess you could have like if you've gone to, I don't know, you were studying abroad in Germany in '06 or something, I don't know, and you went to a World Cup match, or you went to Salt Lake City in '02. Like I would say that like I don't know, like when it comes to like Olympics, I would say like narrow it down to like an event or something. But
Yeah. So I've never been. So
I mean, I've never
I've
been
never
anything
been.
huge.
Yeah. I've been to playoff games, but I've never been to a finals game.
Yeah,
I've been to like NLCS games, and I've been to Western Conference Finals games in hockey. I've never been to World Series or Stanley Cup Finals games. Though I would say
yeah,
if you ever went to like World Series Game 4 or something, I think picking Game 7 would be a reasonable thing to do.
yeah. I mean, I figure when you would say these things, yeah, like I mean, a Stanley Cup Game 7, you know, would be crazy, or but then there's those big events, like the Masters, World Cup, Olympics, Cricket World Cup. I know it's huge, like in terms of
Yeah.
pure number of people. Obviously, different wrestling premium live events if you have one of those that you want to attend. I mean, I don't know. I think it'd just be a fun one that's a little easier that we could just kind of like fanboy out or girl out, depending on who we ask to come on the podcast for
True.
that. But you know,
We have no boys only rule on this podcast, despite what every episode we've done so far
yeah.
might suggest.
Well, so I'll say to that as a side note, um, I really wanted to put something on here that was essentially just going to be like a roast episode of me for a draft. But the only way I would do that is if my wife agreed to come on the podcast. And my wife has said she does not want to come on the podcast.
I think the problem is she might make you cry. You have to
I
consider
mean, she does it in private
levels.
all the time. Like, that's pretty much how I fall asleep every night is crying. So,
All right. Yeah, that's That's
I kid, I kid,
quite the
I kid,
riff to play off of.
I kid, folks. I love my wife, who I know listens to all these episodes.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that the best chance of her having heard that would be if she just happened to overhear you saying that from like the other room right now,
Yeah,
which I suspect did not happen.
I'm not hearing loud footsteps, and I'm not getting any text messages, so I think I'm safe. I think she's just going to bed early tonight with the baby,
Okay.
so I think there's sound machine playing in there, so I think we're safe.
Like Gloria Estefan.
No, not the Miami sound machine, just like
Oh,
a
okay.
white noise machine.
Gotcha. White Noise, like the movie that came out a year or two ago. Is that the name of that
That
movie?
there was a movie called White Noise, a horror movie.
No, it was it's based on a book. It's based on a Dom DeLillo book. I think it's Adam Driver, I think, was in it. I want to say what's his face?
Safe
The guy
bet.
that
He's in
directed
a lot of
Marriage Story.
Noah Baumbach.
Um No Baumbach. I think it's a movie of his, but I could be totally mistaken.
Let me. I
I
will
never
do
saw it,
so.
but
So there was a 2022 film called White Noise. Apparently, it is on Netflix. If anybody wants to watch it, it is
yeah.
a comedy horror movie.
Okay.
Um, that is directed by Noah Baumbach. He also wrote the screenplay, starring Adam Driver and Greta Gerwig. Go
Does that
figure.
count? Does that count as like nepo baby culture?
I mean, M. Night Shyamalan literally has a movie that just came out where it's all taking place at a concert of a singer, and his daughter is an aspiring singer and plays the aspiring singer, singing only original songs that she's written in the movie. So,
I think I see why his filmography is divisive at this moment.
yeah, I've heard not great things, and it sucks because actually the trailer for the movie looked really good. My wife and I were trying to find somebody to watch the children so we could go see that, but alas,
So I did you hear my number three?
let's do this.
So this is the only one on my list. One that would definitely require a third person, at least a third person. And two is a sports related draft for the most part. I mostly just went non-sports for this.
Yeah.
This is actually stolen a little bit from a different podcast, but I think there were some ways that it could be cleaned up, make it a
Mm-hmm.
little bit better. The concept here is basically just we bring a third person on, and one of us has to guess what the criteria of the draft is as it's going on. So, as an
Okay.
example, so I got this idea from the Puck Soup podcast. It was a like a bonus episode. So
Yeah.
the rule that the two people that were drafting had was you can only draft players that were teammates of Paul Coffey, who I played for a long time and played for a bunch of teams and played
A
for
lot
some
of
good
teams.
teams. So like plenty of options.
Yeah.
Um, and it takes a while to kind of figure out because they're like, oh, I'll take Wayne Gretzky. Oh, I'll take Nicholas Lidstrom or whoever. It's kind of
Hmm.
alternating drafting as they actually would draft. Then somebody else is there having to guess what it is.
Okay.
So their version of the rule basically was that once the person figured it out, they could start picking anybody that they wanted. I think that it would be better to just kind of be like, "Hey, I figured it out, so I'm going to say it." You could maybe have like two or three different criteria. I'm happy to be the guesser. I'm happy to be the person that comes up with the criteria. Just yeah, we'll
Okay.
go from there. We'd obviously have to pick somebody, probably somebody that like knows a decent amount about a decent number of sports. Which I mean, that's pretty much everybody that we're friends with. So I don't think it'd be that hard. But I think bare minimum you'd have to get a third person just so that somebody has to guess. But we got obviously
Yeah.
figure out specifics if that's the draft we end up doing.
Okay. that could be an interesting one for sure. I think. See, the hard part is now I'm like starting to weigh the three options you've given me, and I'm like, crud, I have to narrow this down to two. So
I mean, if these ideas are so good that we can't resist them, I'm not saying that if it doesn't get picked here that we can never do it. Like,
I mean, that's
just keep
fair.
them all.
That's fair. These all go into the hopper. But no, I mean, it's a fun idea, and I think we could, if we do it rapid fire enough, like that could probably, we could maybe have multiple, like you said, have multiple ones where like, and maybe even it's a different guesser in each one. Like everybody plays the guesser once or something.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
but,
All right.
I don't
So,
know.
what
Yeah.
is your number three?
All right. So my number three, it may honestly be my most insane one from like a rule standpoint and just a stupidness standpoint. But this is the ultimate fast food menu draft,
Okay.
where an 8-item menu, including 2 entrees, 2 sides, 2 desserts, a drink, and a wild card item. But once a restaurant is taken, nothing else can be taken from that
Ooh,
restaurant. So, like
nice.
at 8 menus, if we're doing even just the two of us, we have to get to a 16th fast food. Or if we bring a third person on, we could have to get down to 24 fast food restaurants.
I'm sure I can name 24. Like, if you're willing to like stretch the definition of fast food to include like I don't know Chipotle or whatever, like kind of get to like the
I'd
fast
say that.
casual
Yeah.
realm.
Yeah, I would say that's fine. I mean, regional ones obviously couldn't, you
Yeah,
know.
I tend to be a believer though that with fast food, count Chipotle like kind of like fast casual things, but I don't count it if you have a server.
Yeah.
Like
No.
there are people who'd be like, "Oh, Buffalo Wild Wings is fast food." Well, first of all, it's not that fast. It's like a restaurant. It's basically like
Yeah.
a sports bar for people
Yeah.
that
A
don't go to
restaurant
sports
that you
bars.
can get carry out from is not fast food. Like, I think, honestly, the stipulation I put is they have to have a drive through for the most part. Like, Chipotle maybe is the exception to that rule.
Well,
But,
there's some Chipotles that have drive-throughs.
yeah. So
How
it's,
about like one where a drive-through is plausible?
yeah.
Yeah,
But,
I'm a little bit sour on whether like Steak and Shake is fast enough and its menu is like conventional enough, but the fact that it has servers does make me a little bit uneasy.
yeah. I mean, there's a few, like, I don't know, though. It's like, yeah, it's the rare one where it can be a true fast food where you can go through the drive-through and get your food in 5 minutes, but you could also go sit inside and have a server bring you food. It's a different,
Yeah,
like, to
I
be
will.
fair, I don't think I would be like, unless I wanted to get like a milkshake or something. Like, I don't think I'm gonna be like, dude, I gotta get that double steak burger. Like that's just
I will say, and this is a thing that I haven't really done post COVID, but years ago that was like kind of a thing, especially like whenever I lived alone in an apartment or whatever, especially whenever I worked kind of far away from my home. A nice little treat to myself, like on the way home, if I was just like not wanting to have to sit in traffic for a while, stop off at a fast food restaurant and eat in. Like people for
yeah,
some reason feel like if they're getting fast food, they have to like eat it in their cars or something. Like no, they have those tables there for a reason. Like you
it's
get free
true.
refills on your soda. You can kind of enjoy whatever random music is playing. Kind of scroll around on your phone or whatever. It's nothing wrong with it.
No, I mean it's yeah. I mean I used to love. I mean when I traveled, like I would sit at freaking sit down restaurants by myself, and not always at the bar either. Like sometimes I was like, no, I'd like a table. I know it's weird, but I just
Yeah,
like sometimes it'd be like a nice day outside. I'm like, I'd love to sit at a table by myself outside, make conversation with the server.
yeah. I will say that that's one frontier I haven't. So I'll go to a restaurant by myself, but I'll always end up sitting at the bar. For some reason, there's just something I don't know why. Like I don't think it's weird if somebody sits at a table by themselves. It's just not something that I've ever
Yeah,
done.
I didn't do it. I wouldn't say I did it a ton, but like if there was a restaurant when I was traveling, I'm like, I want to go there. And there was a decent amount of time when I was traveling where I traveled alone. So like unless somewhere the place that I was working at for that time wanted to go out with me or take me out, I had to eat by myself. And you know
Yeah,
when you have to work out of a hotel room like I used to, any excuse to get out of that is nice. So
Yeah, the idea that eating by yourself in a restaurant is somehow more shameful than eating by yourself at home or eating by yourself in a car doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand it. Like, I wouldn't want to eat by myself at a restaurant every single meal for the same reason I don't want to eat by myself for every single meal in any context, but
Yeah,
like it's not terrible. Like there's worse
yeah. I mean,
things.
yeah, it's I mean, I won't lie. Now there are times that I would, with children, there are times now where I would kill to just be able to sit in peace and eat a meal. you know,
Yeah. So this is actually one of the few categories where so usually whenever I compare my having a dog to you having children, I'm doing it kind of jokingly. But my dog does jump on me a lot whenever I'm eating food. This actually might be a case where there's actually some sort of parallel.
yeah.
Admittedly, probably less loud, but it's
Well, yeah,
disruptive.
it's yeah. I mean, that's fair, but I mean, to be fair, I also have a dog. Like, she may not jump on me like yours, but she's old and stubborn, so she just. I mean, thankfully now we have the baby, so she knows the baby drops food, so she just sits and
Nice.
stares up at the baby while she eats. But
Yeah,
no, I mean,
that's one thing that I'll give my dog credit for is I think he's actually gotten a lot better at realizing that we're like not going to give him human food, but that if he's just like is patient and we happen to drop stuff, and obviously we're not dropping stuff on the level of a baby, but like it's not like we never drop stuff. Like things happen. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like I let my dog, clean the plate if it's just got remnants on it or you know whatever. So it's like, yeah, I mean, heck, nowadays the amount of like crusts of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that my dog eats is probably not the best for her, but she's old and has an iron stomach, so she
Yeah. I mean, if you're a dog once you reach a certain age, you get whatever you want as far as I'm concerned.
yeah, I mean, she's at this point, I mean, she's extremely low maintenance, when you came and visited, most of the day she just kind of lays around, lets you know when she needs to go outside, lets you
Yeah.
know if she's hungry or thirsty, but other than that, now she just kind of sits around. She's very motherly with the baby. Like, if my wife and I are both out of the room, the baby's on the floor, she'll lay next to the baby. She's like, I know I must protect this child, as reluctantly as she does it. But
Hey, you gotta do your job, whether you want to or not.
yeah, it's
Part of your obligation.
yeah. Just like it's your obligation, if you're listening to this, to vote in the poll whenever we do this.
And you know what? If you don't vote in the poll, you can't complain about what this episode is. I am wearing an I voted sticker right now. It is in honor of the fact that we're going to have a poll. It has nothing to do with the fact that it was like Missouri primary day today. Nothing to do with that. It's all about I voted for the sake of getting a sticker so I could cite this.
Yeah.
All right.
I've changed shirts since then, so I do not have my I voted sticker on anymore.
It's too bad. I'm jealous of the St. Louis City ones. So I live in the county, so I have a different type of sticker than the city ones, and it's okay, but it could be better. I'm saying it could be better. All right. Are you ready to hear what my number 4 is?
Let's hear it.
This is an idea that I'm not necessarily sure whether you would have thought of this, but I think that when I say it, you'll be like, yeah, that sounds like the thing that John came up with. So, as you are surely aware, and as our listeners are surely aware, and we're not despite the fact that we just talked about an election, we're not a political podcast for, you know, sort of self-evident reasons. There's a million of those, and we'd rather just kind of have fun. But there's a woman running for president, which is, obviously could be historic if she's elected for
Uh,
various, yeah, if for various reasons could be historic if she's elected. Um, so the two of us, and I'm not saying this as a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying it as a statement of act and precedent, we are both heterosexual men. We are
Yeah.
both married to women. I emphasize two as though I was saying we were married to two women. That's
No.
not accurate.
What one woman apiece, despite it being my
Yes.
second wife.
Yeah, but you've not been married multiple times at the same time. They did not overlap. I don't
Correct.
think.
There's no
Okay.
polygamy that has happened.
Okay. So, kind of by definition, if Kamala Harris gets elected president, she would like definitionally be the president that we found the most attractive, just because we're into women.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that it's worth considering before a woman becomes president, whether it's her or whether it's somebody else down the road, that we evaluate the attractiveness of our presidents. And rather than devoting energy to trying to distinguish between our own biases as heterosexual men or trying to like weigh men versus women, we do a presidential hotness draft. We draft the hottest presidents that we can find. I don't know how many we draft to. I don't know how many people we get on. I don't know if we're drafting for peak hotness or if we're drafting for hotness when they were president. Could be a big deal for like Gerald Ford, for instance. There's a few that were definitely hotter when they were younger, and then they became president at a
Say
less peak
most
time.
most most of those military men were definitely more attractive during their
Yeah,
military service.
there haven't been that many like genuinely like young presidents by any like reasonable definition.
Yeah, I mean Kennedy, the obvious one, I guess, in terms
Yeah,
of young for
Teddy
a
Roosevelt.
president.
Teddy Roosevelt's the youngest president. I believe he was 43,
Yeah.
and then Kennedy was about that, and he was the youngest elected president. But yeah, we'd have to figure out the exact parameters. But rather than drafting like, oh, who's the greatest president or who's the most interesting president, even
Take
just
politics
straight
out
up,
of it.
yeah, just
Who's hot?
well, also like I like the idea of just like being very personal to these people and um being shallow and somewhat rude. I always think back to, this is a deep cut even by like the standards of my own references, but I was listening to the audio commentary of the Simpsons episode where George Bush moves in as their neighbor, and like one of the like writers of the episode was complaining, yeah, all these people said that we were making this like political attack on George Bush. It wasn't a political attack, it was a personal attack on George Bush. We were just like making fun of him for being a crotchety old man, not for like his politics. Like he was just a generic old guy in our show. And I like the idea of, you can say what you will about these presidents. I'm fond of noting that, every president does at least one war crime. There's at least one thing that maybe not William Henry Harrison just because he didn't have enough time, but for the most part, something very bad happens.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean,
and that's why I don't feel bad about saying that some of them are just straight up ugly. We're
oh
not
yeah,
drafting the least attractive presidents. We are drafting most attractive presidents. If you choose as a nominee slash the people who listen to this choose it as their choice.
all right, I like it. I mean, I feel like that would be one to record on a Friday night. Um, that I could prepare for it and maybe continue to make it more entertaining throughout.
Would this be the episode to try to get your wife on? Because getting somebody who is attracted to men would not be the worst like idea in this particular
I,
case.
I can tell you, as politically averse as I am, she's even more so. I don't know.
Well, that's the good thing is you don't have to worry about the politics of the people. You just have to like look at pictures of them and be
I
like,
guess it's
hot or
true.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could certainly bring it up to her. I wouldn't hold our breath, but my wife is It was funny. We were actually watching some Olympic stuff today, and it was we were watching sport climbing. Obviously drafted, and it was the speed runs, so it's like the ones that last like 4.5 to 6 seconds most of the time. Just like me. Anyway,
Wow, you
and
can sure climb fast, huh?
uh, no comment. But there was a competitor, and my wife looks at him and she goes, "He looks like a Barbie doll." Like and I'm like, "Oh, you think he's hot?" She's like, "Well, no. Like, I can look at him and say he's attractive, like 100%. I'm not personally attracted to him, but he's attractive."
She trying is she trying to say he doesn't have genitalia? Should he have been the pole vaulter instead of that one guy? Is that what's going on?
Dude, that dude's getting apparently some offers.
What a life, man.
I
That guy's gonna
mean,
go ahead of Reed Rothschild in our draft before you know it.
yeah, I saw, like, I hadn't even seen that or watched it, and then I just like saw the headline on social media, and I'm like, what are we doing? Like,
It is the funniest possible headline.
yeah, like you look at that, and it's like, oh, is this like an Onion article? No, no, okay, this is legitimate. Okay, you know,
Anyway, Barbies, Ken
yeah,
dolls, yeah.
yeah. See, but just to say that she has commented on attractiveness of random people before. Is there
Okay, yeah.
like not too often, but I don't know. I can I can throw that one out to her and see what she says.
Yeah, we'll have to decide once we know what we're actually drafting, but before I can choose the two nominees from your side of things, I need to hear what your fourth pick is so I can decide what I'm choosing from.
Yeah, so this is my most absurd idea. Not because I think the fast food draft is a crazier type of situation for planning,
Like the
but this
mechanics of the
episode,
draft are crazier.
yeah, but this one would go incredibly long. And I know other people other like publications have done things like this, but we've never done it, and I think it's an interesting thing to do. And that is the one of us takes evens, the other takes odds, and we do a 0 to 99 best athletes by jersey number draft.
Okay. So this would not be. It would be a little bit like whenever we did that with baseball, where we didn't. It wasn't really a draft per se. We just kind of alternated picking who was the best by this certain criteria.
Correct.
Okay, so are you suggesting that we do this for a single sport, or are you suggesting that we do it
All
for?
sports would be
Okay,
included in this
because
one. That's what makes it crazier is it's a lot of planning. Because yeah, if you're just going to go
yeah,
with like one sport, it's a lot easier. But
I will say I did one time. You might remember this. I did a post for St. Louis Bullpen where I did the best St. Louis athletes to wear every number,
yep.
and it
Hmm.
took forever.
Yeah.
But also like, and it would probably be if you're doing all sports, it probably wouldn't be as big of an issue as it was with this one. But like once you get to like certain numbers, like if your numbers in the 80s, you're basically only drafting football players,
Football players, right?
and it
And
becomes very repeated. And like, not that there's a lot of players with numbers in the 80s in other sports, but like you could draft like Eric Lindros or somebody like that if you wanted to,
sure,
or
Nikita Kucherov.
Sidney Crosby. Yeah, there's maybe some guys that aren't in hockey. Is there a baseball one? There's probably a baseball one. I'm blanking
Yeah.
at the moment.
I just think of Sotoguchi. I mean, he's obviously not going to win his number.
Yeah, you really can't go with Sochiguchi as number 99 when Ray Agnew also wore it.
Exactly.
The greatest number 99 in St. Louis sports history, obviously.
I mean,
Okay.
without doubt. You know,
Yeah.
the absurdity is how long it would take. You'd have to sift through all the sports.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy from like the idea is not that crazy, but the functionality, like you were talking about the amount of prep we would have to do. Because like even if we split this up and did like an every three one with a third person, that would still take forever. You know, and,
Yeah.
and Like it could legitimately be a 2-part series, even where we go
Yeah, it would be a really long episode. I was going to
0 to
point that out,
49
but
and then 50 to 99. Like it legitimately
also
could be a 2-part.
are number 0 and number 00 separate?
Absolutely. And I think we would absolutely also have to do at least a piece talking about 1/8 as well as a
Sure.
jersey number.
Actually, that would probably have to be our Here's Guy crossover because they talked about Eddie Goodell on an episode.
I mean, it's one of the greatest stories in sports.
Sure. Um, would I'm trying to think of like how could you? I guess you could do like NASCAR numbers probably like 43
You
for
could do
Richard Petty or
NASCAR
something like that.
numbers, like, and I'm talking, like for like, number 10, you might be like, oh, there's probably a quarterback, but like, no, you could go with like Lionel Messi as number 10,
Oh, sure, yeah.
and it's,
You could go with
I
Pele as
mean,
number 10.
go Pele or, I mean, any of those Brazilians. I
Diego
mean,
Maradona, I think, was 10.
yeah, he was 9 or 10. I can't remember which, but yeah, I mean, 10 is usually kind of like the best soccer player on your
Yeah,
international team. Where's the number? I mean, peak Ronaldinho, peak Thierry Henry, I believe or he might have been 12. I don't remember, but
I can't remember. I think he was 10
I
for
think he was 10 for the
Arsenal though.
French. Was he 10 for Arsenal? Okay, yeah.
I
So
don't know,
like,
maybe
and
it
that was
doesn't
peak
matter.
Henry. Yeah, and that's the thing can be crazy is yeah. I mean, you could throw NASCAR car numbers. I mean, it's I think you could go any sort of crazy direction that frankly you wanted to with it, and yeah,
Sure.
like
Okay.
absurd from the amount of time and prep it would take. So maybe not like, oh, it's because like things like our crazy drafts, like the music one wasn't all that crazy really. Like it in terms of prep, like you had the list and you could kind of look through it. Admittedly, the movie draft was insane, but the
Yes.
Oscars draft was crazy. Um, but this one, I don't, there'd at least be no competing or anything. Whereas like the fast food draft could, you know,
There would
but if
be
you limit it
competition
to, yeah, if you limit it to 8, but you could conceivably have to have like 24 choices at each spot to ensure technically that you like, you know,
Yeah, we'd have to do a little bit of research on that, I think. But
yeah.
so I know the two from your list that I want to push forward. Do you know
Okay.
the two from my list that you want to push forward?
Say, I'm pretty sure. Can you remind me of the 4 just to make sure that I have them right in my head?
Okay, so the four that I had were the city draft, where we have to make up being in certain cities and not disclosing it, and just kind of pretending we know what we're talking about.
Okay.
The karaoke draft, where
hmm
we arrange a karaoke night.
hmm
Guess the draft rule, where we come up with a draft rule and somebody has to figure it out as it goes.
hmm
And then the presidential hotness draft.
Okay. Then, yep, I have my 2.
Okay. Would you like me to reveal mine first, or would you like to reveal yours first?
Why don't you reveal first? I'm liking going second this episode.
Okay. Um. So the one that really caught my attention of your picks of like this seems like it could be like a fun draft and it's something that's a little bit different from what we've done is the fast food draft. So I'm gonna put the fast food draft forward. I do think that if we were to do it, we would have to probably really think about like how many people we want to bring on, how deep we want to go, how many like what qualifies as a fast food restaurant. Like I feel like we'd have to have like a discussion of is blank a fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
Like that would come up, but I think it would be worth doing, you know, early on.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree.
and also, uh, just because I think it would be right. I actually was thinking this before even though I had my ideas, but there is something like we probably should have at least one like semi-conventional draft in the poll, just in case it turns out that's actually what people want, and like all these exercises are just like going against the will of the people. So I'll go 1968 NFL draft. I think that going back and really maybe kind of elevating our So to clarify, this would just be the NFL draft, not the AFL draft, or do they have a merged draft at that
It
point?
was a merged draft. It was the NFL AFL draft in '68.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So those will be my picks.
Okay. All right. With yours, I will. I'll just keep it short and sweet. I think my two favorites, or that would at least be the most fun of yours, is I like the karaoke draft,
Huh?
and we got to throw the wild card in there. Presidential hotness draft has to go through. I think, if
Okay.
nothing else, for the potential prospect that you know. I'll say it this way: whether it's my wife, like we need to find a female guest to be on that show with us.
Yeah. So we each have wives. Do we know other women?
Um,
That's the question.
do I know other women that would come on our podcast randomly? Is maybe more the question. If you're a
Might be a
female
little bit.
listener of the show and you would like to be on that episode, let us know.
Yeah, if you're a female listener to this show, please let us know so we can confirm that a woman has listened to our podcast at some point. That's the primary thing I want,
Yeah, I
ladies.
mean that's. I mean, if you listen to our podcast at all, let us know because I don't think our streaming number figures are too reliable.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but we'll if it comes down to that, we'll put out some flyers, but we'll put up the poll tomorrow,
Yeah.
and yeah, we'll see what the people want to listen to. I'm really curious what people are interested in doing, and we are at the whims of what people want.
Hey, man. It's election season. Like you were talking about today, it was primary voting day. We're going to put the power to the people, and we are men of the people. There's no electoral college here. Your vote has direct counting into what we do. We have no backbone or spine, and we will absolutely stand and do whatever you tell us to if we can do it. So,
Right. All right. Where can people find you? And most importantly, just as one more reminder, where can people find this poll? Because that's going to be integral to the next episode. Probably the next episode we do, but certainly a future episode.
yes, you can find me, first of all, at Draft Day Dan Show. I will absolutely retweet the poll, which will come from our podcast thing on X, which admittedly I haven't been great about doing stuff with, but check it out at Draft Day Pod, the Twitters.
Yeah, I will say I think pretty much everybody that follows Draft Day Pod follows at least one of and probably both of us. So I think people are still getting the information. But yeah, if you want to follow me, I'm at JohnJF125. But yeah, like I said, go to Draft Day Pod to vote. I'll retweet it from time to time, but rather than having to cycle through my timeline, you can go ahead and just go straight to the source. I'm sure we'll have it up. We'll probably pin it just to sort of let people see it. And yeah, that's pretty much what I got. And hopefully we have a fun little draft ahead of us at some point.
Yeah, I think this was like a fun, easy little episode for us to hop on and record.
Yeah, I like that even our like explanatory episode's still like almost an hour long. That's
I
just
mean,
who we are.
yeah, I mean, there's only a few tangents.
Yeah, there's gonna be people who see the length of this episode and they're gonna be like, did one of them like pass out during the episode? Like, how did this? How did they like put it on super speed as like a prank? I don't know, but
Yeah,
we'll see
it'll
what people
be,
think.
yeah. But let us know your thoughts. And like I said, if you have any ideas, shoot them to us. Love to hear it. But we'll wait for the results of the poll and then go from there.
Yeah. Now we better wrap this up before it gets to the hour mark. Just be safe. Bye, everybody.
Bye.